Hi guys, my name's Seb Tudor. I'm the man on the Silver Mountain, and welcome back. Today I wanted to talk about the some of the great teachers that I've had during my life. Mostly because I did the people who inspired me video, and I still to this very moment feel like I missed some people, especially the teachers that I've had that really prompted me to doing more. And as a result, I wanted to make this video to highlight some of these people and the things that they taught me. Um, because everyone has teachers, everyone's got opinions on education. I'm sure I'll do videos on education at some point later down the line. But what it comes down to is, in regards to um, the specific individuals that you interact with, the ones that are imparting knowledge onto you, some of them are absolutely fucking terrible, and that minority of really shitty teachers gives the rest of them such a bad name. The systems that they work within at times are so horrendous and are so badly managed that as a result it does lead to those teachers that would otherwise be good getting a bad name, or not being able to help children in the way that they have been trained to, or the way that they would like to, purely because the system doesn't support them. There's so much work that still needs to be done on creating good standardized education so that everyone gets picked up, everyone gets helped, everyone gets moved along, everyone is educated, everyone is capable of moving into the world and knowing who they are, what they are, and knowing how the world works. There's so much more work that needs to be done on that on so many different levels, but at the moment, unfortunately, that still seems a fair way off, especially considering that we're getting more recently an awful lot of anti-intellectualism flowing out and kind of poisoning people against the idea of greater educational standards and improved education to help the world. But anyway, going back to, let's not make this miserable. Let's go back to the great teachers that I've had, and I had a lot of good um, teachers when I was in like primary education, especially after I moved. From what I can remember, because it's a long time ago. From when I moved from Newbury, out in the middle of nowhere, relatively speaking, into the centre of Guildford, it was a case of um, the teachers that I had at the time were very, very good. They were very focused on teaching me things like lateral thinking and stuff like that. I had one particular teacher in year 4 who was very, very into his lateral thinking, and he made a point of giving us the occasional lateral thinking puzzle and things like that. And he was one of the teachers that actually made a real big impression on me, or a really big impression, sorry, on me, because we had this project to do, and we had to make this car out of MDF, and then we had to fit a windscreen on it out of acetate. And it hadn't been made super clear to me that the acetate would just stick to one extent or another to the MDF. And so there was me getting really frustrated and really upset, and I was going over it with all this glue, and I was slapping it on, and it wouldn't stick because, of course, the glue was just it was sticking to the wood, but it wasn't sticking to the acetate, and it was just running off. I was trying to find other ways to do it. I was thinking, I can't use nails. I'm not allowed to. I'm a small child. I can't. How do I make this work? And I got really frustrated, and I went home. And I believe a week or two later, there was a parents' evening, and I went in with my mother, sat down, and Mr. Brown sat there in front of us, and he pulled the thing out and he went, so what went wrong with this then? And I explained that everything went fine, everything was cool and dandy until it came to that windscreen, and I just couldn't do it. It was impossible. Not a thing I could do. And then he made a point of kind of wiping the glue off and just then pressed it on, and it stayed and it stuck. Just through the roughness of the fiberboard and whatever was on the acetate that I hadn't realised that was there, allowed it to stick and stay and hold in place well enough. And then he pointed out to me and my mum that at the time, whenever something wasn't going quite my way, I would get very frustrated, I'd get very upset, and I'd give up. And I'd give up not based on evidence. I wouldn't go, I've got these various reasons as to why it won't work. I just went, it's not going my way the way that I want it to work, and I'd give up. And I wouldn't persevere or anything like that. I wouldn't ask for help. I mean, I still to this day find it at times quite hard to ask for help, depending on what I'm asking. But it came down to, after that conversation, it gave me that moment of realization that I hadn't been paying attention, I hadn't been persevering, I hadn't been trying everything before I gave up. And so after that, it gave me that reason to try more things. But after that, at the beginning of secondary school, I had a really great teacher called Mr. Tillotson, who was great. He very much, he was my form teacher for a while, he was my science teacher, he very much fostered, I mean, I already loved science, and he just made it so much, that scientific like lust for knowledge, and the want to explore and allow my curiosity and my imagination to kind of expand on things and try and pull stuff out and work around them. You know, he made a big impact on me, and I left the school to go to my new one whilst he was still there, and then I believe he moved on a short time after that anyway. I mean, I'm still in touch with him on Facebook and stuff, but what it comes down to is he was one of the first teachers that I'd had that was, he was still a young guy, and he was able to kind of encourage in a very non-judgmental and just like, look at this, it's awesome kind of way. And it got me really enthusiastic about going into that area, you know, and always being curious, always looking into things, always trying to pick things to pieces and find out how they work, and then relate that to other stuff. You know, very after having science with him and having conversations with him and stuff like that, it was very much a trying to take the world as one big thing, even if you have to analyze it in small chunks. But then moving on further into secondary, I had some, or out the end of secondary rather, I had some absolutely great teachers when I was doing my my A levels, and I had Mr. Garside, who was a psychology teacher, who was absolutely great. He had a lot of experience, an awful lot of stuff to bring to the table, to discuss from stuff that he had experienced in the past before he became a teacher. You know, there's an awful lot to learn from there, and he was always a pleasure to discuss those things with. He didn't back away from having those discussions and interactions. And then I had Mr. Beastle, who was always curious, always enthusiastic. He was one of my physics teachers, and so as a result, he would just go. He would happily at times go off on tangents, going into the stuff that we actually wanted to talk about, stuff we wanted to explore, stuff we were curious about. You know, he would always have a laugh as well. He was a great guy. We went up and did the transit of Venus, monitored the transit of Venus across the sun in a field at one point, which was great. You know, it was just fun to do, fun to actually have some practical science to play with. And then I had my two biology teachers, and I had Miss Allen, who was absolutely great. She was a very caring and fun, enthusiastic teacher. But she was the teacher that was the one that said to me, because I didn't do as well as people felt I should have done in my exams, and there were reasons for that, and I had those reasons become apparent later down the line. But what it came down to was when I was at one point, she came to talk to me, and she sat there and she said, when you're doing the practice papers and things in this environment, you're doing fine, but as soon as you go into the exam hall, it falls to pieces. What's going on? And I was like, I don't know. I can find the information, I can use the information, I can remember the information when I'm here and doing stuff, but take me and stick me in a silent exam hall and just gone. And she sat me down and she gave me a big smile and she just went, well, the thing is, a wise man is not someone that knows everything, but someone who knows how to find and use everything. And that stuck with me a lot, because whenever I've come up against a roadblock, whenever I've had I'm not one for exams, so when I've had a hard time with exams, it's been a case of like, if I know the information, if I can find the information, if I can apply it and I can apply it well, then I've done a good job. The pieces of paper that I need to fill out, they're formalities. I can grind away at those for as long as possible to get the job done. As long as I can actually just do the job, I can do the job. And as a result, that's one of the reasons why I have had a fairly successful run of being in business until it started chewing away at my soul. I was able to take on board things and apply them, and that was far more worthwhile and important a set of skills to learn than just remembering things and memorizing stuff. And then I had one other teacher, and she was also a biology teacher like Miss Allen, and that was Dr. Lockett. And whilst I feel that maybe at the time I butted heads with her an awful lot because I wanted to know more, I wanted more relevance to what I was doing, and I had this thirst for knowledge and the capacity to use my imagination and to actually exercise things, whilst she felt that maybe those were good qualities but not qualities that were conducive to her teaching a class. I feel like as a result of her being friendly and understanding and kind of caring of that side of me, whilst also trying to be very harsh and hard at times. There were lots of people that at the time were frustrated with her because she was teaching. She had come from a university background. She had achieved her doctorate and whatever else. I know as a result, she had an awful lot of information to give people, but at times it felt like she expected more than we could give back. And at the time, I may very well have been as frustrated as anyone else was, but I now very much appreciate the fact that, firstly, she was nice enough to be understanding of the various frustrations that we had to one degree or another when they were actually brought up to her, but also being pushed. Whilst when you're a kid you don't necessarily realise that's a good thing, now I'm very much appreciative for the fact that push was there. And I've seen her several times since, and it's always a pleasure to talk to her afterwards. And then the last teacher that I want to talk to wasn't actually a teacher from school. I've mentioned him in another video. It was Mr. Loxton, who I had as a tutor to help me solve some problems with the way that I was working, because I was struggling with maths specifically. After I had moved from one school to the other, there were a couple of gaps, and my speed of doing mental arithmetic was kind of causing me some problems, and so it became a case of sitting down with him and getting that extra help. Some of the stuff that we talked about and discussed and so on and so forth as a result of him coming and helping me with that work, being default, being human, instead of assigning myself all of these other random labels for no reason, various other bits and pieces that I'm sure I may very well get into in the future, those all stuck with me as well, and they're really important things because they allow me that perspective and that appreciation of things outside of just me and outside of what seems appealing, and as a result, those are the great teachers, and I don't feel that really great teachers get their praises sung enough, because you've got an awful lot of people who are very hard on teachers, teachers do not have the easiest job in the world by any stretch, because when you're dealing with a class of kids, some of them are going to pick things up faster than others, some of them are going to have other problems, some of them are going to have things happening outside of school, problems in school. You've got a mixed bag. And so, there are an awful lot of teachers that are absolutely great but never get any recognition for it. And so this is just me wanting to provide some of that recognition and point out that life is a learning experience, and it all starts with those people that help you at the very beginning. Between your parents and your teachers at school, they're the people that set you up to advance through life. And this is why I'm personally rather focused on education and understanding, because you need those things to progress. You can't make any kind of good progress unless you've got good goals, and you can be specific and you can be realistic, but the ability to set those goals, the ability to drive towards them, the perspective and awareness required for these endeavours, the appreciation of reality and the way the world works, all of these things come from your teachers at the very beginning and from what your parents impart onto you. So that's all I wanted to say. But leave me your experiences with absolutely great teachers down in the comments below. I'd love to see just how many good teachers there are out there and what they managed to achieve for you. But yeah, otherwise, drop me a like if you found this at all interesting or just positive in some way, and otherwise subscribe for more, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care, guys.